From finally understanding how a camera should work, to shooting a gun that takes you directly to your crush's closet, these are the games that invented some of the most well-known mechanics in history. Super Mario 64 didn't just change the gaming industry. It walked in, flipped the table, and reassembled it in a way nobody realized was even possible. Before Mario 64, 3D movement was basically developers asking, what if games hurt to control? Mario 64 said, no, we can actually make moving in 3D feel good. The analog stick on the N64 was more than just a corny little gimmick. It brought a physics revolution. Suddenly, you could walk, jog, sprint, tiptoe, or throw yourself off cliffs with full analog precision. But the real invention was the camera. The Lakitu Cam wasn't perfect, but it was the first system that established how modern 3D cameras should orbit around a player. Mario 64 taught the industry, the camera should follow the player, the controls should be consistent, and platforming shouldn't feel like you're fighting the camera more than the level. Every 3D game afterward, Banjo-Kazooie, Jak and Daxter, GTA, Assassin's Creed, literally everything, owes Mario 64 royalties in the form of soul fragments. Mario 64 built the foundation for the entire house of 3D game design. And then Nintendo, as much as it hurts me to praise them, casually left it there like, yeah, we did that, you're welcome. The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time came along 2 years later and asked a simple question. Okay, Mario can move in 3D, but can Link fight in 3D without looking like he's punching the air at random? The answer was Z-targeting, also known as the lock-on system. One button press, and suddenly Link snaps into a perfect combat stance. Instead of spinning wildly, he focuses on a single enemy like a medieval laser pointer. This mechanic solved the biggest early 3D problem. How do you fight something when neither you nor the camera wants to cooperate? Ocarina's solution was elegant. You lock on, you strafe, you dodge, you look cool. It turned chaotic messes into choreographed duels. The entire modern action genre, Dark Souls, Kingdom Hearts, Devil May Cry, Batman Arkham, even Elden Ring, all borrow from Ocarina's system. It's the lock-on mechanic that made boss fights cinematic, made enemies readable, and made combat actually playable. Half-Life arrived in 1998 and politely informed the gaming world that cutscenes didn't have to be these stiff, sit-down-and-watch-your-game-freeze events. Instead, the story could happen around you, in-engine, in real time, in your face. Gordon Freeman never talks, never sits, never takes off his suit, but somehow still participates in the absolute madness around him without losing his own mind. The game begins and you're already inside the story. There's no cut to black, no wall of text, just a tram ride that conveniently turns into OSHA's worst nightmare. Half-Life's no cutscenes, no breaks philosophy was so innovative that it became the blueprint for FPS storytelling. Games like Call of Duty, BioShock, Metro, Titanfall 2, they're all descendants of Half-Life's narrative design. Half-Life reinvented pacing. It taught players to trust players, to be able to absorb the story without spoon-feeding it. Suddenly, designers realized they could tell stories without interrupting gameplay, something Hideo Kojima obviously was not a fan of. Truly revolutionary, and, more importantly, no more awkward 2-minute pre-rendered movies that looked like they were made in Windows Movie Maker. Shadow of the Colossus entered the scene like a minimalist poet who also happens to bench press mountains. No dungeons, no mobs, no side quests. Just 16 massive colossi standing around waiting for you to violate their personal space. Their true innovation was boss climbing physics and a world built entirely around these living mountains. When you climb a colossus, you're not activating animation nodes or grabbing invisible ladders. You're clinging to actual fur, stone, and geometry, while the creature actively tries to yeet you into orbit. The grip system introduced stamina-based climbing that's now everywhere. Breath of the Wild, Genshin Impact, Dragon's Dogma 2, all channeling Shadow of the Colossus. The open world was also ahead of its time. It wasn't filled with a million icons. No, collect 78 feathers, or find the mysterious frog. Just a huge, melancholy landscape designed to make you reflect on your life choices between colossal boss homicides. Shadow of the Colossus invented the boss-only narrative and the physics-based climbing genre. Without it, half of modern open-world games would be unemployed. Portal walked in wearing a lab coat, holding a gun that bends reality and said, "Watch us make a geometry crisis." The Portal gun is arguably the most original mechanic ever created. It takes something simple, create 2 linked holes, and transforms it into a universe-warping puzzle language. Portal's brilliance wasn't just the mechanics. It was how the game taught you to think with portals. Step 1. Shoot wall. Step 2. Shoot other wall. Step 3. Panic as physics propel you at Mach 12 because momentum is a thing. Non-Euclidean movement was so innovative that even now, most games avoid trying to replicate it. Not because they don't want to, but because it's extremely hard. Portal forced players to rewire their brains while listening to a homicidal robot deliver dry insults. It's iconic. The Portal gun became a symbol of what game mechanics could be. Simple to understand, impossible to master, and endlessly creative. Valve didn't just create a mechanic. They created a masterclass in elegant design. Dark Souls stormed in like a medieval landlord ready to evict players from their comfort zone. To complement their hard game gimmick, they invented a mechanical ecosystem that defined an era. Bonfires, death loops, interconnected level design, stamina management, invincibility frames, everything working together like a cruel, well-oiled machine. The bonfire checkpoint system was revolutionary. It turned healing, leveling, and respawn mechanics into one cohesive idea. Rest, enemies respawn, risk increases, exploration becomes a gamble. Suddenly, the entire game revolved around how far you could get before chickening out. Then there was the soul retrieval mechanic. Die once? Fine. Die twice? Congratulations, you've lost your wallet, your savings, and your dignity in one go. Dark Souls created the modern, difficult but fair philosophy. It inspired thousands of games. Neo, Hollow Knight, Jedi Fallen Order, The Surge, Remnant, Blasphemous, all drinking from the Dark Souls fountain like dehydrated pilgrims. And to this day, I still wonder how many levels worth of souls I've lost before reaching that one cursed bonfire. Finally, Fortnite entered the battlefield like the chaotic cousin who everyone underestimated until they realized he invented a new sport. Nobody thought of a mechanic where you would be building inside a shooter. Mid-gunfight, you could suddenly build a 20-story tower like you're auditioning for Minecraft Esports Edition. Before Fortnite, shooters were simple. Aim, shoot, hope, and rage because your opponent just smoked you from 300 miles away. But Fortnite said, no. Aim, shoot, build a condominium, do a 360, and edit a window mid-air. The building mechanic completely transformed how players approached combat. Suddenly, high ground was more precious than premium loot. Fights became vertical, dynamic, and aggressively sweaty. The editing system added another layer that truly brought a sense of architectural magic. Fortnite invented a new skill expression that blended shooter reflexes with construction logic. This innovation turned Fortnite into a global phenomenon and reshaped competitive gaming. Even players who hated the building system had to respect how groundbreaking it was. It changed shooters permanently and forced the industry to rethink what a battle royale could be, until they started collaborating and turned Kratos into a club dancer. These 7 games didn't just push the medium forward, they detonated it in controlled explosions that sent shockwaves across decades of game design. Mario 64 built 3D movement, Ocarina fixed 3D combat, Half-Life reinvented storytelling, Shadow of the Colossus made bosses into architecture, Portal turned physics into a playground, Dark Souls created a genre, and Fortnite blended building with shooting so effectively that entire generations still don't know how to cope. Every time the industry started getting comfortable, one of these games showed up and redefined what normal looks like.